This is what Javier Aguirre said after the game. It's never good to lose. We didn't play well. It was a game with a lot of takeaways, more negatives than positives. But what can we salvage? What we can salvage is the effort from Santiago Jimenez and Ángel Sepúlveda. We want people to criticize us. We'll prove what we're capable of at the Gold Cup. There will be rotations against Turkey. That's what these friendlies are for. We need to be fully prepared. I mean, that is kind of a no-brainer here. But what should be Javier Aguirre's biggest concern, Herc?
Javier Aguirre himself. There were just some decisions in this game that I do not understand. Us in these circles, we've been clamoring, we've been yelling for the Mexican national team to get games of worth, and here they have a game of worth against a serious opponent, and Emilio Lara starts. And he's not even going to go to the Gold Cup. Emilio Lara's not going to make it to the World Cup. Why is he starting in such an important game? Why not give the game to Jorge Sanchez? Why not give the game to Julian Araujo? Why have Emilio Lara, who's got no possibility of making the World Cup, who's not even going to play in this Gold Cup, this opportunity? And then you see what happens on the field. Now, we can keep going to the alternate lineup that he has, but this is just as much as on Javier Aguirre as it is on these players. Like, it's not Emilio Lara's fault that he's not good enough. Look at this pass right here.
That's really bad.
I don't even know where to start here. And then you go to a coach like Javier Aguirre who with a 9 did good things at the at the Nations League against Canada. Okay? Against Panama. I'll buy that. Though I thought for long stretches against Canada they were outplayed, and I thought they were fortunate to win. But are you really going to play a 9 come World Cup? Because this could be a realistic opponent in the World Cup.
Right. And
a 9 with a team that doesn't know how to play out of the back. Like, I just thought Javier shot himself on the foot. It wasn't the moment to try to experiment on things. He did it with the lineup. He did it with the personnel. And he could be unhappy at his players. And he said some players, we found out who could and who couldn't. I think we also found out a few things about Javier Aguirre.
On the subject of the 9, what I'll say is that he will play a 9 at the Gold Cup, and I expect him to do so, and I have no issues whatsoever in him doing that. And the goal comes from a mess created by Raúl Jiménez that eventually Santi Jiménez takes advantage of that. So, look, I don't think that decision in itself is the biggest issue for the Mexican national team. I saw a lack of overall athleticism in this team that is concerning.
That's very concerning.
I'm not talking about passing the ball. I'm not talking about dribbling. I'm not talking about decision making. I'm talking about running, baby, running. When Embolo started running, whether it was Cesar Montes or Jesus Orozco, they were like, we can't get there. We can't get there. And if indeed, to the point that Hercules is making, this is a sort of team that they could be playing in the World Cup, this is also the type of player and the type of athlete that they're going to play against. And they looked second best. I'm just talking about athleticism. I'm talking about running. I'm talking about power, strength. Whenever Cesar Montes or Jesus Orozco went to challenge Brel Embolo, it's like they were not even there. They could not move him. And so, and I'm not even going to mention Emilio Lara because, well, he did enough already. He did enough.
I don't think he wants you to mention it.
No, he did enough already. And I respect his family, apparently. And so I'm not going to say anything about Emilio Lara. But just overall, Mexico looks slow. Slow on the ball, slow physically running with some of these players. And it's not just Embolo. Ndoye down the left-hand side could not be stopped. Whenever he gave a change of pace, Mexico couldn't keep up. And that was happening all over the field. So, yeah, Javier Aguirre, we can talk all about the 9 and whether that decision makes sense or not. I think there are bigger issues for this team if you're thinking about the World Cup. If you're thinking about the Gold Cup, it's a different conversation.
Does that 9 make sense to you, Herc?
It does against certain opponents. I don't think it made sense here because what you're doing is you're taking a player out of the midfield and you're playing with Charlie Rodriguez, who's not, well, Ali's talking about, an athlete who struggles in the middle of the field. I don't think they did themselves any favors. the double nine will work in certain cases. It didn't here. I've got a bigger issue. I've got a bigger issue than double nine. I've got a bigger issue than the actual personnel, and I don't think Mexico's helping themselves. By the way, this game was played in Rice Eccles in Salt Lake. There's somewhat elevation that Switzerland may not be used to when they come out to these trips.
Well, thank the
Here's
Lord they're
my
not used to elevation.
Yeah, no, but you're absolutely right. Here's my problem, Ali. Here's my problem with the Mexican national team is at this stage, they don't have World Cup qualifying, okay? These players aren't going to get used to playing in Azteca Stadium. But why are they always playing in the United States? When is the Mexican national team going to, in preparation for the World Cup, play in Mexico and stop doing the business with U.S. soccer? It's Switzerland and Turkey. That's who they're playing against. You know who the U.S. played against? Turkey, and they're playing against Switzerland. So they're trying to piggyback, and they're trying to appease U.S. soccer to play because they also want the dollars in the United States. But I think it does them no favors when they're about to play a World Cup in their own home country to not have these games of preparation leading up to a World Cup in their own home country. So thankfully, the altitude didn't hurt Switzerland too bad. You can only imagine if it did. But I think it's playing against the Mexican national team that they're not having these games of worth in their own country, that they keep thinking about the bottom dollar. And these 30-men rosters, like what is Javier Aguirre trying to get out of this? I don't buy that he has players who are coming into a season. So do the Swiss, and so will Turkey. This was the moment to try to do something with the base. Try to do something with players you think will be there. Edson should have played. If Alexis Vega, who's coming off a ridiculous season and you think could be a contributor, he should have played. Santi Jimenez, Raul Jimenez, you should have gave them with certain partnerships the ability to perform on the field on Mexican territory, and you did not. I think there are very worrisome things happening here, but it's all going to be swept under the rug once Gold Cup comes about. Once they start winning these games that they should win, once they get to the final and maybe win it, people are going to forget about
when
this.
or if they win those games, Herc?
Well, they're los obligados. The pressure's on them. They're the only team in CONCACAF that has that pressure. But if they win, Chris, and you know how it is, if there's a loss, like it was the year that Santi Jimenez scored the winning goal in the Gold Cup final, people forget they lost to Qatar. And the sky was falling after they lost to Qatar. A meaningless game with an alternate lineup, and the sky was falling. They ended up winning. Problems are swept under the rug. They hired Jimmy Lozano. I could see the same thing happening right now. It's not the time to sweep things under the rug.
Right. Yeah, it's time to come face-to-face with what Mexico and Javier Aguirre really need to do to be well prepared. More well prepared, because getting proper conditioning here in the next couple of weeks, it's